It's been about a year, okay? It's not been exactly a year. Technically, I got my MacBook Pro last December. But since we're coming up on that reunion, and since I've been so impressed with it, and I've been so happy with it, I thought to celebrate, we should have a 1-year anniversary MacBook Pro review 1 year later. So I actually get questioned about this little guy a lot. Most commonly being, how has it aged? Or what do you want to see in the next MacBook Pro? And I still have to defend it day in and day out because it was the first Pro iterated device that had so few ports, pretty much no legacy ports, of course of which meant the removal of the HDMI port, the SD card slot, traditional USB, but for some odd reason they kept around the headphone jack. Probably one complaint I have. But today I wanted to highlight why I still am very satisfied I went with this purchase and why I still believe that USB-C is the future. See, with smartphones and iPads and Apple Watches, I believe we can do everything wirelessly. We're not there yet when it comes to Pro desktops and laptops. And I think that while we're still using cables, each of our ports we should choose very carefully and make sure they're incredibly powerful. And speaking of power, the one word I have to sum up my 15-inch MacBook Pro with after a year of using it is speed. That's what I love the most about this laptop. It is able to edit things in Final Cut incredibly quickly, whether it be 4K at 60 FPS footage. It is able to turn on incredibly fast, and because I'm an Apple sheep and I have the Apple ecosystem, as most people are who own one of these, being a part of that ecosystem makes the product a lot better. So first of all, there's this glorious feature that I love using called Unlock with Apple Watch, and it does just that. Whenever I open my MacBook Pro, it instantly turns on and unlocks because I have my Apple Watch on and unlocked. This fluidity between unlocking all of my Apple devices is definitely one of those hard nails in the coffin of ever trying to escape from the Apple ecosystem. It's one of those exclusive features that I would definitely miss on the other platform. So this is how my day goes. I wake up, I put my Apple Watch on, and then I grab my iPhone 10. It unlocks with Face ID, which if you didn't know, when you unlock your phone while wearing your Apple Watch, it will instantly unlock the Apple Watch, which means that I don't have to put in a passcode or anything on the watch. It just opens up and I don't even think about it. Then when I get up and I need to start editing or I need to start working on something, all I do is open the MacBook Pro, and because the Apple Watch is unlocked, it unlocks too, which is so fast, so easy, saves me a lot of time, especially because the included Touch ID sensor on here is cool, but doesn't work for me, as I've mentioned in the past, because psoriasis, you know. And of course, a lot of people had complaints and still have complaints because of the lack of ports. You have to use a ton of adapters, right? You have to use a ton of dongles. Well, not really, just one. I've talked about this one a lot before, but I'll recommend it again. It's produced by a company called Quack, spelled Quackquoc. They make these in multiple colors, and all they really do is bring back every single port you ever complained about and a little extra. So this one adds 3 traditional USB ports because we still have a lot of cables and cameras out there that require those ports, and this one doesn't have it. And of course, as videographers and photographers are out there, we need SD card slots, not to mention micro SD card slots as well, which this has both. It even has a fully functional HDMI 2.0 port, which means that through this HDMI port, I can output to a 4K monitor. On the back, we have a Ethernet port and a power delivering USB-C port, which means even if you have all of your ports occupied on the MacBook Pro and you're using this adapter, you can still charge it. So typically, if I'm on the go, and that's kind of the purpose of a laptop, I can throw this laptop in my bag and I can take it wherever I want to go, and I can go do my work. I can use the incredibly thin keyboard. A lot of people were controversial about it, but as you find most reviewers saying, you get used to it pretty easily. I've been using it for the past year and I still absolutely love it. I'm so accustomed to that style of keyboard now because I feel like my brain has been wired for touchscreens anyway. The fact that they don't have much travel time or clickiness as other keyboards doesn't really make a big deal to me. I'm more about efficiency than I am making sure something feels correct. I'm used to typing on virtual keyboards, so typing on a keyboard that's really thin doesn't bother me. And I also love the incredibly large trackpad. It allows me to drag things all the way across the desktop. And now, since I've had this, anytime I use any other kind of trackpad, I always feel like I'm running out of space. I always feel like there's not enough to work with. And one of the cons of the MacBook Pro, especially the 15-inch version, is battery life. So yeah, for those of you who have experienced this product, you know that when you take it on the go, you're probably gonna need to take your charger with you. The 87-watt USB-C one. Luckily, Luckily, it comes with the device, but separately, it's like an extra $100. It's quite an investment. If I'm not editing, I could easily get 3 to 4 hours out of this when I'm on the go, but when I am editing, it's definitely down to 1 to 2, which sucks, but it's one of those compromises I'm willing to make for the incredibly light form factor. So yeah, this doesn't have an SD card slot, it doesn't have those old legacy ports, but I'm okay with that because I know what Apple was trying to do here. Apple was trying to urge third parties and developers to move on. See, if they would have included the old style ports, or if they would have even included SD card slots, companies would have just kept making those. And now because they know so much of the pro market doesn't have that option anymore unless they start buying accessories, it means that we have to do more research and more development into trying to figure out wireless data transfer between cameras and computers. And I understand that's not ready yet. I understand all the people saying that no, wireless transfer is slower, it always will be. Though I have to say, using an adapter on this thing has definitely not been a nightmare like everyone makes it out to be. Because the processor is so fast and because Thunderbolt 3 is so optimized, it means that when it's time to import footage, I plug in the adapter, put in the SD card, and when I transfer those files, they transfer very, very quickly. Usually just in a minute or less, depending on how long the video is. I import the footage and then I'm done. I just yank the adapter out and go on with my day. It's really not been a struggle. Usually people who comment on this thing is like, you gotta spend $200 worth of accessories. No. You just need one adapter. Whereas if you want to buy a very capable adapter for your Surface product, which by the way costs a lot more, that's going to be an extra $200 on your already higher priced Surface Book 2 via Microsoft Surface Dock. Since those devices only have one USB-C port, you can't really plug in a ton of dongles and accessories that are capable of using so many ports at the same time. That's what this doesn't get credit for. I've used this adapter with the charge cable plugged into it, with an SD card plugged into it, with 2 of the USB ports being used and the HDMI port being output to a monitor at the same time. All of that being done by one single port. The little adapter gets hot, sure, but I'm not really touching it. I'm just saying that the MacBook Pro, while it doesn't have all of your old ports, it has 4 incredibly powerful ports, and I also love the option of being able to plug in your USB-C cable to any side of the MacBook you want. Whenever I start using an old MacBook, even if it had MagSafe, I'm annoyed that I can only charge it on one side. That was another big complaint I remember defending about this guy, is that it didn't have MagSafe. I have to say though, USB-C unplugs pretty easily. I know it's not as easy as MagSafe, but at the same time, I've run into situations where I've stepped on the charge cord for this, and I've even had my MacBook sitting at my desk and I literally just grab the charge cord, pull on it, and it unplugs. It's not the old days anymore where tripping on a charge cord meant yanking the whole device with it. The charge plugs are not that rigid stuck in there anymore, and I think one of the reasons Apple was okay with ditching MagSafe was because USB-C, while it is secure and can do a lot, isn't necessarily so rigid in there. Pulling it out of the MacBook is not that hard. Now, a lot of people like to bring up the competition and say that Windows 10 has more apps on it or Windows 10 has more games on it, which keep in mind, you can put Windows 10 on any Mac with Boot Camp. I do this primarily for games, that's about it, and a lot of people like to reference the idea that MacBooks are incapable of gaming. It's definitely not entirely true. I understand that MacBooks are not built for gaming. I'm just saying the argument that they cannot game is no longer valid. As you can see, I'm running Battlefield 4 on my MacBook pretty smoothly. Not a terrible frame rate, and definitely not a terrible playback resolution. It's easily playable, and the high performance processor, the 16 gigs of RAM, and the dedicated GPU, even though it's a year old, still holds up pretty well. I'm not much of a gamer, so I don't have BF1 or Overwatch to put on this thing, but I'm pretty confident with some of the settings put to medium or so, it could probably do it fine. Now, sadly, Apple's done some rearranging in the App Store, probably because of user demand and customer feedback, and they no longer have the exact tier that I bought back when this was available. It cost $2,000. It was the cheapest 15-inch version. Now the cheapest 15-inch version is around $2,400, but it's only because it has a much higher performing processor and way better GPU. However, it's not to say that you still can't buy this one. You can still actually get this exact tier MacBook Pro if you go to the Apple Store app and look under the certified refurbished section, and this one has actually dropped in price. The exact MacBook I'm using today is now only $1,850 instead of $2,000. So you can even get a deal on it now if you're still interested. And probably a lot of you are wondering what I feel about the Touchbar. I have to say that the third-party optimization definitely did not take off. A lot of us were saying that back when it came out. Third parties will make or break the Touchbar. I think that was too much pressure to put on it. I look at it this way. Apple had two ends of the spectrum. People who wanted a traditional laptop that was just slightly faster, they didn't want drastic changes, and people on this side, which is where I fall, who wants drastic changes, who wants Apple to make giant leaps forward with the MacBook lineup and is okay with lots and lots of new ports for the sake of faster speeds or larger trackpads, different types of keyboards, keyboards. So Apple had to meet somewhere in the middle, and I think that was the compromise with the Touch Bar. Apple eventually wants the entire bottom of the MacBook keyboard to just be a giant touchscreen that can change from app to app. That way you have your display screen and your touch screen. I did a video a while back about a MacBook Pro concept where it paired with the Apple Pencil so the entire keyboard area can turn into a drawing pad. I would love to see that happen, and the Touch Bar is a step in that direction. So the Touch Bar isn't a gimmick, but it's also not the future. It's just a little toe in the water for what is yet to come. And I think because Apple's making these keyboards thinner and thinner, they're eventually just trying to get you used to the idea of not having travel time at all and just having haptic feedback. Obviously, the market's not ready for that yet, but I think that's what Apple's going to. And a little added bonus, something I don't think people give this enough credit for, the speakers on the MacBook Pro 15-inch are insanely loud. They sound incredible, and I love being able to use the Touch Bar to change the volume. So yes, everyone uses the Touch Bar. No, not for a ton of different things. It's pretty limited in what the Touch Bar is capable of between changing display brightness. It works in Final Cut pretty well, changing volume. I also love that in macOS High Sierra, you can enter picture-in-picture with the Touch Bar. That was really smart. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is this is a very powerful mobile powerhouse, and when you need it to act like a desktop, you can. I did this time lapse where I sit down at my desk, I plug in a USB-C port into every single port, and I'm editing videos. I'm opening Final Cut Pro and After Effects while watching a video, while charging my phone via the USB-C port with a Qi charger, of course. And if you want your MacBook to charge faster while it's plugged in at your station, you can simply shut the MacBook Pro lid. It will just act as a giant speaker, as in the speakers still work when the lid is closed, and output all of the data to your external monitors, as long as it's plugged into power. And it can charge that way, even though I'm doing all these different things, and it does it immensely well. Via macOS software updates, this guy's only gotten faster. Back when originally I reviewed it, Adobe was not optimized for it. I couldn't edit 4K in Adobe Premiere. They've updated it now, it works fine. And overall, I'm just very, very glad I bought this thing. However, as we move more into the future, I think very, very soon I'll be needing to make an upgrade, and it won't be a mobile upgrade. I'm talking about the iMac territory, and I'm definitely talking about the space gray territory. But that's for another day. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.